Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our February Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting. We have um, faces and participants popping in. It's a beautiful thing to watch that we can all see appearances of faces and or photos. Okay. Um, since we have a pretty full agenda today and making sure that we have time for any questions and discussions that we need to have, I'll go ahead and get us started and officially kick it off. Welcome, everyone. It is our winter Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting. Claudia Fair here, and I'm going to sit in for John Schafflerberger, who is our co-chair, our faculty co-chair. He has a class, but I'll be kind of facilitating and leading off. And then we are going to have Mike McCormick, who is going to be providing an update on our sustainability action plan, how we've been doing. He'll be acting chair for Lou today, who could not be with us. And then we'll go ahead and cover in depth targets 1, 2, and 3 that we put on the agenda. And then also this meeting is being recorded. Hopefully everyone's gotten that notification. And before we actually get into committee meeting business, I'd like to provide a land acknowledgement. The University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and defer to Mike, who's going to provide a progress update on our sustainability action plan for this first year.
Thank you, Claudia, and thanks for the land acknowledgement. I think it's particularly appropriate in this committee, because we have so much in common with that heritage. This is great. Good afternoon, everyone, on this nice snowy day. I'm as Claudia mentioned, I'm sitting in for Lou, so I have the really easy job of kind of giving you an update of where we are on the sustainability action plan and turning it back over to Claudia and her team, which they'll be doing. They have been doing all of the bulk of the heavy lifting and will continue to do that. So it's makes my job pretty easy. The snow outside kind of shows that we're halfway through our first year of the sustainability action plan, and it's been really nice to see how the action plan is actually driving some of the work that we do. And the Sustainability Action Plan Executive Committee has been meeting on a monthly basis to review all of the actions, and it really is starting to create the focus that we were hoping it would. And so that's really nice to see. We've also incorporated the Sustainability Action Plan into our UW facilities strategic goals, and so we're working to make sure that that's part of our everyday work too, and so that's been really helpful. The pandemic has challenged, as you guys read in the reports, there's some of the measures that the pandemic has challenged our forward momentum on. And we're trying to figure out how do we deal with that as we move forward. Some of that will just kind of resume when we get past this. Some of it's going to have a lasting effect that we'll have to start to look at a little bit more carefully. But what we wanted to talk about today was the 3 items that we picked out for our meeting today is really meant to get feedback from this group, and they really have to do with kind of deeper questions about how do we engage students? How do we define sustainability as a framework across the campus? These are a little more difficult, especially in these times during the pandemic, for the group to get a handle on. And we've been honestly struggling a bit more with those than we have with some of the others that have fairly defined goals and tasks. So today's agenda is really meant to be a very interactive agenda. And so hopefully everybody's ready to speak up and speak their mind and kind of give us the feedback. So I'm looking forward to that. Just one last announcement I want to make. One of the action plans is about recapitalizing the utilities and getting away from carbon. Facilities has recently hired a new energy leader, Dave Denary. He will be starting on March 29th. Some of you had the pleasure of meeting him during that interview process. We're very excited. He comes to us with a really great background, and he'll be leading our group called the Energy Utilities and Operations. And so he'll be really trying to pull together both the operations of the existing plant and utilities, but also really leading the revisioning of that. And so it's going to be really great to have somebody whose full-time job is to really focus on how do we make it through that. So just want to let you know, and you will probably see him when he does begin his job on March 29th. We'll include him in this group. So because he's such a big, he will be such a big player in this. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Claudia so that we can jump into the meat of the discussion, unless there are any more general questions about sustainability action plan up to now until we get through these three. Any questions? Okay, Claudia.
All right, thanks, Mike. Really, really great kind of segue into how we're going to be spending much of the time today. We're going to begin with Torin. I'll do timekeeping, so I'm going to use the chat function to do that and just give our speakers their 5 minutes warning. So get your questions in there. There's also a hand raising function on the chat if you'd like to do that. And then we'll just have our presenters today facilitate and prompt you for any questions that you have. So with that, Torin, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Mike, for that great introduction. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. So I'm Torin, leading up the engagement target. So the metric is to double student, staff, and faculty sustainability engagement by 2024. In the last report out that we did, you'll notice that the baseline metrics looked a little bit different. Upon further review, we realized that the baseline metrics that we had were a little bit difficult to measure, especially at this point during the pandemic. So we decided to kind of change up what we were focusing on. So right now, we have sort of 3 different metrics, working still with the Continuum College, with 2 community programs that are identified to add sustainability curriculum to the college. Tri-campus events. So we've decided to do quarterly events that that encompass all 3 campuses, so Bothell, Tacoma, and Seattle. And the topics of those events vary by quarter. And then we have a bunch of virtual programming that we've done. So what we can kind of take information from is what we have from March 2020 till March 2021. So we'll be kind of looking at events that we've done starting at the beginning of the pandemic till the end of the pandemic to kind of get our metrics and see where we can go from there. So we saw that in the last report out, we felt that it didn't really embody all 3 campuses. So we thought that that was something that we needed to add. And then another thing that we looked at was the way that the pandemic has altered how people attend events and how they participate in events. So that was kind of why we decided to really focus on the tri-campus events, just to try to, have more participation and kind of get the word out about all the great things that Bothell and Tacoma are doing, as well as Seattle. So a couple of challenges. It's really difficult to, have students, especially students, prioritize, our events as they're going through their day to day with Zoom classes and whatnot. So that's one of the challenges that we've seen. And then one of the things that one of the solutions to that was starting to really promote our events early on so that they can plan for it. So that if there's an event coming up in May, that they know, now and can start planning to attend those events. One of the other things that actually has been quite positive is that for the commuter campuses like Bothell and Tacoma, we've seen that students are somewhat more participatory because they don't have to commute to campus to attend an event. They can just Zoom in. So that's kind of has been a really, really positive in that respect. So some of the risks, people are busy and they, lose track of events. One of the things that we thought about that is that if we can decrease the number of clicks that they have to make to get to an event. So for instance, sending out, an email that says, here's the link, making it very easy for them to attend an event. That was something that we want to move forward with for the next events that we have. Because as we all know, sometimes with meetings and whatnot, you're like, oh, where is the link? Oh, I can't find it. And you're searching frantically through your email. Meanwhile, the event is starting. So that's something that we sort of wanted to make more seamless. So for next quarter and moving on past next quarter, especially for when we're back on campus, we would love to continue to offer live as well as virtual events so that we can kind of keep that easy access to our events going. If someone can't be on campus, they can still attend the event virtually. And then we will do further participation in our tri-campus events as well. Hopefully each quarter we'll be able to come up with some topics and share what each of the campuses is doing. And then those we look at as more interactive events throughout campus. One more thing that I wanted to share is we have a capstone student that has been working on really helping us define engagement and kind of what that looks like, and also helping us establish some benchmarking. So right now she has, and unfortunately she couldn't be with us today because I would have had her do a little blurb about what she's been working on. But she's talked to University of Colorado, University of Arizona. So I have yet to get information from her, but once I do, I will be glad to share that with everyone and kind of see what recommendations they have for us moving forward and see kind of how we can learn from what those schools have done. So right now I have just 2 slides. One of them is a question slide because I'd love to kind of hear from you guys and get some questions answered. And then, thank you, Damon. And then the second thing is, I just wanted to share what we have been, the events that we have, just a couple of them, just so that you guys can see kind of our sort of big ticket events that we have been doing over the past year, essentially. And I think I can do it like this. Can everyone see it? Okay, good. So this just, you guys, we have a spreadsheet with all of our events on it, but this just kind of shows a couple of events that we have had since summer 2020. So this is just kind of a nice little snapshot. And I can send this out too if you guys are interested. But I'll let you kind of look at this. And then I have some questions. And I'm not very tech savvy, so there we go. Okay, so here are the questions that my group had for you guys. So what are your current recommendations for weaving more of the equity piece into our current work? That's a piece that we kind of see lacking. So I was wondering if anyone could provide some insight as to, or recommendations as to how we can sort of weave that piece in somewhere. And then is using other schools as a model for measuring engagement, a good marker? And then do you guys have any other suggestions? And then the third question is, how should we approach sort of bringing in more of campus? In our last meeting, John had suggested that we sort of broaden our reach. We're having a little bit of difficulty trying to figure out how to do that. So of these questions, I would love to get some feedback from you guys. So thank you. And feel free to ask questions about where we are if I missed something before.
And we can use the chat. Torin, thank you. I think this is, you provide some really good segues into conversation. So we'll go ahead, and if you want to do a hand raise or even using the hand raise on the Zoom feature, please feel free to do that.
Claudia, should we start with Bruce? I know because he sent the two of us a really nice email about this very subject.
Great. Yes, if Bruce doesn't mind and would like to provide his thoughts. That sounds great.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great.
Lauren, this is Ellen. Are we actively sort of answering these questions right now? I had to take a call, so I had to jump away for a second.
Okay. That's okay. Hi, Ellen. Yeah, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had Bruce. So Bruce, you had provided some thoughts, the email you sent to Mike, Lou, and I on engagement and how our ever-changing campus is going to be. Do you have any? Would you like to share your thoughts so far on these targets?
I would love to share some of them. I have to remember them. So would you give me a minute to find my email? And
Absolutely. Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot, but you had some really great ways to
but I did have a question in the chat room on this particular presentation.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, so Bruce, your question is really perfect just for this whole meeting. Is there a written equity piece for us to consider? And the answer to that is that centering equity and inclusion at the center of this planning is a guiding principle. So we did talk about that in the planning stage, but not in each one. Each target has its own way of describing inclusion and equity in the particular steps.
Thank you.
And while Bruce is queuing up, this is Ellen. I just wanted to say that on our sustainability committee down here at UW-Tacoma, we actually do have a position where the head of CEI, the Center for Equity and Inclusion, is on that committee. So it always keeps us focused on, that part of sustainability. It's not just the environmental, it's also the social and environmental justice. And while Bruce is thinking, I see this in two ways. One is that we make sure that the way in which we're defining sustainability always keeps equity at the forefront and doesn't just become some kind of a secondary version. And the other is some of the activities that we do can directly benefit some social and environmental justice sort of concerns. So the example that we're doing for Earth Week down here, we're doing a different event every single day. And one of them is, where we actually do a fundraiser for the pantry down here, which of course delivers food for needy students. And last year, I think I've said this before, but last year we raised $2,600 in one day for the pantry. So I think I see it in those two ways.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellen. It looks like Stuart might have a question, and then Rob.
Yeah, well, I have a question or response about the equity piece. Since I'm sitting on the committee on behalf of the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity, we've got, of course, the equity issues are very front and center for us. And one thing is I wanted to offer, I'll pass on to my colleagues the concern and see what else they have to say about it from our point of view. The other thing is that I note that a lot of students, senior level students and some early graduate students who have come through the university via the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity have a very strong interest in these equity issues. And some of them are actually looking for research projects or things that they can assist with, either to get a resume line or for some sort of credit. And so there's a talent pool there of people who are very focused on these issues and may have some availability.
Awesome.
So
That would be great.
And
I'll pass along the possibility to them.
Fabulous. Thank
Okay.
you. And-
So I'm prepared. This is Bruce. I'm more or less prepared. So call me whenever you feel like it.
Okay, so let's do Rob and then Bruce.
All right. Thanks, Torrin. I wonder if your team has had conversations about engaging college by college. It seems that, for instance, in the College of Built Environments, we're going through a strategic planning process and are trying to inform what we do by the campus sustainability plan. I think in particular, opportunities for professional development, for instance, might be specific to disciplines in colleges. And if there was some kind of effort to outreach to colleges, this might be a way to expand engagement.
That's great feedback. I'll write that down for sure. That'd be awesome. Great. Okay, Bruce.
Yeah, I was reading through the two documents that Mike and Claudia sent around and trying to step back from the issue of the details and just take a grab at the big picture. Now, everybody has to remember that I'm new on this committee, and questions that I may raise in the next few minutes may already have been covered. And if that's the case, Claudia, would you please shut me up? When I think of the University of Washington, sustainability, student engagement, I look at it's more than student engagement, it's everybody's engagement. And there are only so many things that we can do in the way of defining activities on the campus, but there seems to me that we should be thinking about how people live their lives, not just on campus. So sustainability is basically an ethical practice. That is, it has to do with the way in which you perceive and care for the world. And it's something which we should be encouraging people to think about 24 hours a day, at least when they're not asleep. Can we define activities that people who work on this campus, who study on this campus, can take home with them? So as a trivial example, we could define a project for maybe middle or high school kids to build an indoor recycling container that has 3 parts, the usual 3 parts. And this is a hands-on activity. And something like that, just sitting in the kitchen, keeps sending a nice message over and over and over again. Now, that's kind of a trivial example, and I didn't have time to think about how we could broaden that out. Anyway, when we're focused on things that happen on campus, and I'm pointing out that we should be focusing on the people on this campus and the way in which they live their lives, not just on campus, but off campus as well. And the other thing, I'm going to bring this up later. This isn't the place for it. So I'm done.
Thank you, Bruce.
Torrin, don't you think that we could you could talk about the ideas that we are discussing as far as interacting about sustainability at their homes? I think that would answer where Bruce is going, because you guys are doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an event coming up next week, a tri-campus event, and the focus is sustainability at home. So it's an interactive event where we're hoping that students, staff, and faculty participate, and we're going to do some little presentations from each of our campuses, and then also have people share sort of what they've been doing and how they've been living sustainably on campus or at home during the pandemic, and how sort of that has changed with them not having not being on campus and kind of not having certain resources available. So that should be really, really interesting. So thank you, Tony, for reminding
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, you guys are always working on that, but so this is a great place to go ahead and talk about it. So thank you.
Yeah.
To Bruce's points about people and engaging people, this could be a longer conversation, and it seems like it could be something that it's a continued conversation with the next ESC meeting, and also an opportunity, again, Bruce, not to put you on the spot, but I really liked what you said about taking into account how are we preparing our students to be global citizens? What does that look like? Not just on campus, but just internships, experience, learning. So
Claudia, that's the part I decided to leave till later.
Okay.
If you want me to, I can talk about it now. I'm ready.
Go. Yeah. Do you mind? I really thought that was a great point.
Okay. So the purpose of the University of Washington is to prepare students to live responsibly in adulthood. It's not just to educate them. It's not just to give them grades. It even goes beyond on-campus activities, such as being on various sustainability committees. That's our job. That's our role. And it occurs to me that from what I've seen in the report so far, we could look beyond the campus for ways to enrich the lives of our students, not the least of which is to connect to many of the organizations off campus, and I could give you a long list. They're governmental, they're commercial, places where our students might be able to find. I hear myself. I'm echoing. I'm having a hard time hearing.
It might be through Stewart.
So somebody may have their audio on that shouldn't be on, because my voice is coming back through you somewhere. That's better. Okay. So finding opportunities for our students to take what they learn on campus and go out into the world and make use of it, to work with government agencies, to work with companies, perhaps in the form of internships, but we should really be looking beyond that. That is, we want our students to seek jobs in the sustainability area of sustainability. And you just don't walk into these jobs. You have to be mentored on the way in. So I'm thinking out loud here that people in our administration, and maybe beyond that, need to be connecting to the outside world. And we have a whole bunch of people on this campus who are really good at that. Rob is one of them. He connects to the architectural world. Sally Jewell and the Climate Institute connects all over the place. I mean, we have people, Gary's students who in the program on the environment, they're going out and they're learning how to connect. I mean, it's beautiful to see it happen. It's just beautiful to see it happen. And so when it comes to the academic side of our activities, I'm hoping that we can go beyond campus and find ways to work through people on our campus who connect to the outside world to open opportunities for our students, meaningful opportunities. And I know Rob has done this in the past. I'm not sure who else is.
The Alumni Association may have a lot of because of the successes and stories that they create as well there, Bruce.
Right. So I'm not suggesting that we jump right into this today. I think we have to take a look at what we can do, what our resources are, and to put something together where we coordinate carefully with other groups on campus. This isn't something for next week. I mean, it really belongs somewhere in our charter more than in our agenda, for now at least. I'm done.
Awesome. Those are great points. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who has shared feedback. I've got a lot to think about, but it's good.
A specific question that kind of follow-ups on Ellen's point about her work and connecting to the food pantry. And I thought that was really awesome that, she, as one of the, I believe, action owners is identifying that there's this social justice, environmental justice component to her work. But I don't know that that is currently called out as a particular action within the target. And I guess I'd be interested to hear, and we have a section later on about FY22 planning as well, so we don't have to get to all this right now, but I'd be interested to hear from this group, is there interest in having actions in FY22 that specifically kind of, I guess, look at the social environmental justice implications of each of these targets? And I know like target 4 is a really good example. It's really focused on equity, but I think some of the other ones, the equity components are really in the steps themselves and not necessarily in the action, if that makes sense. So I just want to get folks' thoughts on that.
You bring up a really good point, Kyle. Having looked at our implementation for this first year, it's been a lot of that work has been inferred in the action steps, and not something that we're specifically, say, reporting on every time we're having these quarterly check-ins or monthly meetings. And it seems like a good discussion topic to identify ways that shows up in these targets. How does it, and what is the impact to doing better on equity, and what does that mean? So I guess my answer to your question is another question. Other points of view on that? Addition. So it sounds like, Kyle, what you're bringing up is how are we implementing a guiding principle on equity?
Well, I think the guiding principle is kind of, in a way, is, I guess it's the most visible piece around equity that the plan has, but it doesn't necessarily show up visibly in each of the actual targets.
Yeah.
So at a glance, if you just look at the 10 targets and you're reading through them, I don't think, environmental justice really jumps out as one of the actual actions for each of those targets. So I'm wondering if it would be useful to have an action for each of the target that is specifically focused on the environmental or social justice component of that target.
It's a really good idea. One, you remind me of a specific example I can point to right now. With this current legislative session, we're asked to assess and review legislation, and what the state's done is it's asked specifically what the impacts are to the BIPOC community and or students for each legislation. And they have a new form, and it's online, and it's really clear what they're asking you to weigh in on. And that just reminded me of something that would kind of prompt a similar type of communication into the plan. As if we're not asking, we don't know. So
I see Stuart has his hand raised.
Yeah, just from our experience developing things like this within Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity, we have found that if you have an overall goal set up at the top level like this, and you don't explicitly trickle it down into all of the implementation steps, then anybody looking at the plan from the outside says, this is just lip service to this. Even if it's not, it looks that way. And so it's really important, I think, to articulate these overarching goals within the context of each step, just for that reason, as well as any other.
Agreed. It's really clear once you have it, what your statement is. So having a statement, it clarifies that a whole lot, certainly. We're at time for this section. However, don't stop thinking about it, because this is somewhat related to the next section. Torrin, thank you very much. Thank you and the team, and for your work group, and everyone that's been involved with that. Please continue to send questions on the chat. We'll capture them so that we have something to provide as a response. I'd like to segue to Marilyn and Kyle to facilitate the next agenda item, which is our UW-wide sustainability framework. So this is a really good progression of this conversation. So Marilyn, take it away.
Okay, great. I'm gonna, let's see, can I share? Can I get permission to share my screen? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I presented to the group earlier. We got some great feedback about ESC's role in defining sustainability, and this time wanted to actually get your input. So I'm having an exercise and to solicit your feedback here. First, just to ground us, that adopting a university-wide definition of sustainability is one of the actions listed in the plan. And again, what I'm going to do is create a framework to elicit and document your insights and observations. I want to give a shout out to a number of people who had conversations about this with me that were very helpful. Thanks, Isabel, Maher, Jen, Kyle, Clarita, and Damaris. First little bit of this exercise is to ask you, I'll show you in a moment how I'll get your answers, but ask you, what is the essence of sustainability for the University of Washington? And I'm gonna suggest a little thought exercise or a little perspective. Here I have a timeline. Each section is 1,000 years. So as far as we know, people have lived in this area, forever, but we have sort of archaeological documentation that it's been at least 8,000 to 10,000 years that people have lived in this area, in the area where the campus is. And then over to the right, there are 100-year increments. The UW has been here for 160 years. And so thinking sustainability, sustainability for the UW, what does that look like? Are we going to be here for another 100 years, for another 1,000 years? I just want to tickle your brain with that. Now I want you to go to the chat window, and Christoph is going to put a URL for a Jamboard window. Some of you may have encountered this. It's a sticky note application. I'll show you how to use it. So before, or keep your shared window open here, I'm going to jump over to the same Jamboard. The main instruction for Jamboard is you just go to this tool menu here on the left and click on the little thing that says sticky note. You choose a color and you type in your note, and then you hit save, and it will appear on the Jamboard for everyone to see. So the idea is that this helps everyone to give feedback, and we can all see it. For those of you who, from whatever reason, Jamboard isn't working, feel free to put your notes in the chat window and we'll transfer them to the Jamboard. And if there's anyone who neither of those work for, please take notes and then send them to me later. Okay, so we're going to start. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Christoph is going to time us, and we'll see if that's long enough. think about this question and start posting your comments about what is the essence of sustainability for the University of Washington.
Got about 30 seconds left, so if you haven't posted something yet, try to get something down on a sticky.
If you're having trouble with the stickies, feel free to just drop your note, or you can send it to me directly if you want to be anonymous, and I will add into the onto the board.
That was 2 minutes. And just FYI for folks, the sticky to access that, if you can access the Jamboard, is just the little square. It's under the big sort of black arrow in the left-hand side in the menu there.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks so much for getting some great ideas here. I'm going to keep moving. We're going to have a total of, well, we're going to have 4 questions for you to respond to, and then there'll be 4 definitions of sustainability from others for you to respond to, just to know how this is going to look. But I have this as a structure to get your ideas. If you have other ideas that don't fit this structure, don't hesitate to just go ahead and put down a sticky anywhere. It doesn't need to be in the right place. Okay, so next I'm going to go through 4 themes or qualities of definitions of sustainability that came from both the literature on defining sustainability and simply from looking at existing definitions. These were 4 that seemed particularly appropriate to look at. So the first one is, some definitions help us understand what type of thing is sustainability, what's the nature of sustainability. So for example, one definition suggested that sustainability is a competency, an ability, a skill set that a community has, or the whole human community, to sustain life. Others say sustainability is a way of being that's embedded everywhere in our culture, in our knowledge base, our educational system, our legal system, our moral framework. Others suggest that it is a state or a set of conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony. Another is that it's an outcome or property of a dynamic system, where as long as the system stays within certain bounds, you have this property of sustainability. So this next question is, what is the nature of sustainability for the UW? And if you go back to the Jamboard, up at the top, you'll see there's an arrow. It says, well, depending on where you are, 1 of 10. So you can hit that forward arrow and it'll take you to a page that has this question already and some of the content from the slide. So again, 2 minutes, go ahead and think about this and enter your thoughts.
Is this the same link that we're using?
Yes, it's the same Jamboard.
Okay.
Click on the right arrow to go to the next page of the Jamboard.
Thank you.
So about 30 seconds left. So try to wrap up your ideas. All right, that's 2 minutes.
Thanks, and I want to acknowledge whoever wrote too big a question to tackle in a few moments. I totally agree. All of this is worth lots of thought, but I appreciate all the insights that we're getting. Okay, next theme is a common structure of definitions out there addresses this idea of 3 pillars of sustainability. Often it's described people, planet, profit, but I found in the definitions many other ways of expressing those concepts. So for example, people was expressed as human health or social equity or social well-being. So more specific or more well-defined than just the phrase people. I also came across an article that discussed this whole concept and challenged it and said that it's hard to know, or it's hard to figure out where this came from, and the thinking behind it is perhaps not fully rigorous. So I wanted to bring up, do people feel strongly about including this concept of the 3 pillars, or do you have other ideas? So again, go back to the Jamboard and go to page 3 of 10, and your thoughts about this concept of 3 pillars of sustainability, if that resonates or not.
About 30 more seconds. And that's our time.
Thanks so much. And for those of you, in case you're wondering, I've been moving cards just so they don't stack up on each other, but apologize that if you're wondering where your card went, it's because I moved it. And I'm also remembering Kyle and Christoph had offered perhaps to offer a few summary notes. Kyle or Christoph, did you have anything you wanted to say about these? I really, yeah.
I haven't had a chance to fully look at everything. I would just say that there's a few that seem to focus on the word profit and offering alternatives to profit, or just maybe not fully resonating with profit. There's one that offers the word prosperity rather than profit. Health of planet, health of people, health of economy. So it's still kind of a focus on the economy, but maybe less, not specifically profit driven.
Mhm.
Yeah, seeing a lot of health there. A lot of the word health. Interdependent, intersectional aspects of those three pillars is something else.
You're a little hard to hear, Christoph.
Oh, I would just wanted to note the interdependent and intersectional aspect of those three things. So sustainability cannot necessarily be disentangled one from the other.
Mhm.
The sum is greater than the parts in this case.
Mhm. Excellent. Okay, next one, the lens we looked through. So I found that definitions tend to have a flavor, and they fell into these four categories. And I think of it as sort of a lens one looks through. Some have what feels like a scientific perspective, just sort of pragmatic conception of enabling survival on a biological level. Some have a business perspective that talk about balancing human needs for prosperity and material goods with the ecological needs of the planet. Some sort of more rarely have a philosophical or somewhat spiritual perspective, focusing on responsibility and ethical guidelines and deeply appreciating the nature of our connection with other humans and non-humans. Others have, this is not the right word, I said a governance perspective, but this perspective that focuses on fairness, justice, equity, and common good. What lens or lenses feel right for the UW, if these are any? So again, go to the Jamboard and go to page 4 now and share your thoughts on this.
Just about 10 more seconds left, sorry. Okay, that wraps us up for this one.
Mhm. Thanks. Great thoughts here. Christopher or Kyle or anyone else for that matter, any observations you want to make?
I'm just seeing that all of these are important, right? To us as an educational institution.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see a few that sort of emphasize the governance perspective as sort of a starting place. And you know, there's the one right in the middle, justice and equity. One of them reads, I think a governance perspective would be most helpful for this definition to show that that's driving action here with aspects of science philosophy included. So also kind of resonated with my thought that really starting with, you know, what is just and then going from there. So kind of follows suit from our conversations earlier. And of course, a lot of different ideas here. I can't get to them all. So if someone else is seeing any theme emerge, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I really like this note that they have different roles. Science clarifies, business balances, governance organizes, and philosophy justifies. I like that. Great. Okay. Next one, the final sort of theme bit is the goal of sustainability. So some definitions spell out what are we trying to achieve with sustainability. So some that I ran across are thriving, healthy, diverse, resilient communities, a better world, high quality of life and well-being, communal existence. So go to Jamboard page 5. And what are your thoughts about what is the goal of sustainability for the University of Washington?
About 30 more seconds. And that's 2 minutes.
Thanks again. Kyle, Christoph, any thoughts here? Or anyone else? I see some that are oriented toward our educational mission. That was very relevant.
Yeah, I see better world mentioned a few times.
Okay, so now we have 4 definitions of sustainability. The first actually is one that popped up as one that our core group really liked. And I pulled in three others, and I'm not gonna read them for you. Each page will have them on them. We'll give 2 minutes for each. And so go ahead and go to page 6 and read through the definitions and see what they trigger. What do you like? What do you not like?
Seconds.
Let's tack on another minute for this one, Christoph.
A note from Claudia saying we have 10 more minutes total, Marilyn.
Thanks. And how are we doing on our 3 minutes, Krista?
Oh, we're done.
Oh, we're done. Sorry. Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's go to page 7. Oh, some people already have. Great.
You want to spend a second talking about this one?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that there were some comments saying this is too short and some saying this is too long. So I just want to point that out, that that might be a sort of theme that we see emerging with this and as we talk about this. So that might be something to spend a little more time on, is, you know, maybe who is our audience? Maybe there's a long and a short version potentially. So just something to kind of bring to attention. Also, there were quite a few comments about bringing the last 2 sentences up, which I thought was really interesting. You know, I think maybe that merits more conversation within this group, and it sounds like there's an appetite for that conversation. So I just want to point that out as well.
Thank you. Okay, yes, go ahead and go on to page 7 for the next definition.
About 30 more seconds for this one. That was time. Do you want to give this one a little more time, Marilyn, or do you think we need to move on?
Anybody speak up if someone's feeling they want more time? Let's go ahead and go on to the next one, page 8.
About 30 more seconds.
Kyle, Christoph, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, my alarm would just went off. That was 2 minutes. Haven't got a chance to really read these yet, though.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, as one says, it reads how to achieve sustainability, but not a definition. So that was one I got to read so far.
Yeah, I'm also seeing somewhat open-ended, and then a couple about instilling justice up in the definition. Yeah, I think the overarching is that it's somewhat indirect and open-ended, and could use some more actionable focus.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, final one. I haven't been saying where they come from. This one happens to come from Sustainable Seattle, the group. So go ahead and share your thoughts.
Wrap up your thoughts on this one if you haven't already. We have about 30 more seconds left.
We are at time for this section, but we can go a little bit. This group's going to need it. So you want another 5 minutes?
This is the last slide, so I think we're good. I'll just say that we'll take this feedback. Thanks so much, everyone. There's clearly a wealth of thought and ideas here. I'll reflect it back to this group if everyone's interested in seeing it all together. And then we'll use it to inform our next similar engagement with the faculty advisory group. So thank you so much. You'll hear more probably at the next ESC about what we come up with.
Excellent, thank you. And also, how many folks have used Jamboard? Yeah, okay. Nope, okay, yeah, fun, huh? Online stickies. So it's just like as if we were in the office. So Thank you all. Thank you, Marilyn, Kyle, and Christoph for facilitating that. And this is why we wanted to spend more time on this, because it's important and this is not the last time we'll be talking about it. Marilyn mentioned there's a faculty advisory group that's going to meet and convene. That was the group that was identified to represent a multidisciplinary faculty group from all 3 campuses. So similar exercise will be done with the faculty group as well. So really moving on into just a quick update for FY22. We started foreshadowing this, and I'll go ahead and share my screen to see if, let me try to do that gracefully here. Oops. And I'm probably not. Okay, here we go. So let me know if you can see this. Okay.
We're seeing your Slack right now, Claudia.
Okay. Well, you don't want to see my Slack. You don't want to see all the notes that I've been passing with.
Are you trying to share the looking ahead document?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Great. Okay. So what we want to do is just give you some dates for your radar in terms of our planning for FY22. You may have seen a survey in UW Today and UW Insider, as well as different through different campus emails that link to input on the FY22 planning. So this includes statements and descriptions of what we have in our plan currently. And so we will have that survey out through March the 12th. We would encourage you to share that with your departments as well, if you think you can or have access to sending on your listservs in your departments. We really do want to create as much access to our faculty and students to complete the survey, because I think that's the least amount of reach that we have. And once we close that in March, we will plan to have a kickoff meeting with the various action owners for the targets. And their role is really to be stewards of updating the plan, tracking the progress as they've been doing in the reporting. Our time frame to have a draft for the ESC, and actually before we get to that, we will be asking and inviting you to be part of these work groups. So if you want to be, if you want to have more conversations, deeper conversations on our definition and framework, we will make sure that there's opportunity for that, so that we're inviting the ESC along the way. But our goal is to have a draft of the actions for FY22 in May. So that's when we meet again. And that'll be our kind of last academic meeting for the year, which is going to be in the May timeframe. So our goal is to have our FY22 action plan completed and published by July 1, which begins our new fiscal year. I apologize for the typo on the bottom. That should be July 1, 2022, or excuse me, 2021 for 22. So it's not a typo. Sorry about that. But these are the dates that we wanted to share with you. If there's any question that as a result of today's meeting, we want to hear about them. So to Marilyn's point, we plan to have a recap of all the stickies and ideas that came out of the Jamboard exercise. So with that, what are any questions on any of the definitions or the questions, or any burning comments at this point on just on that exercise? I know we asked you to think and evaluate and critique. So some of this stuff comes out later, right? After the meeting, so. Everyone good? Yeah. I must say, really well done for after a long holiday, after a lot of snow, after Valentine's Day and all that chocolate. You guys did a really good job. Very, very astute comments. And thank you. Yes, yeah, thank you to everyone who provided their comments on the chat. And that was very well done. So thank you, Marilyn, for giving so much structure and to this very kind of complicated exercise of defining sustainability. Okay, so we have a little time, so if there's anything else, feel free to just ask, raise your hand. We wanted to bake in a little bit of time for these meetings for committee updates too. Our last two meetings have been very much structured with our reports, but we have a big committee, we have students in this group, we have faculty, we have different administrative departments represented. So we want to make sure that we hear some key updates from everyone. So we're baking in some of that in our agenda. And for this time, we actually, I had a conversation with Ben Packard to share an update from his group for the good of the order and the committee to also be aware of some of the great things happening at Earth Lab. So I'm going to hand it over to Ben to do that.
Thanks, Claudia. And again, thanks to your team for running us through such a excellent exercise. I hope it was helpful. I just wanted to briefly share with this committee and take any other conversations or questions that folks may have as a result offline, because we updated, just recently, we updated our strategic plan at Earth Lab. When we set out to do this, our purpose was to make sure we were developing a plan that was useful, that set directions, and that was also reflective of the stage of our growth. And for those of you who I haven't worked with closely yet, we're only 4 years old at this point. I'm the inaugural executive director, and we have spent these early days bringing together some of the existing pieces on campus that are now in Earth Lab, starting some new ones, building an advisory council of external leaders representing various parts of the community that I think Bruce was making a nod to earlier, and getting our innovation grants program up and running. It was time for us to push our horizon out again, and we also wanted to use the process as a means to broaden our conversations with our outward-facing networks of potential supporters, collaborators, and conspirators in the community. We began in the fall of 2019, way back then, if you can imagine that. I can barely remember what the beginning of 2020 looked like, and really sought to really get greater clarity on articulating what it is that Earth Lab hopes to be and achieve in the world, because it's been promoted before I got here as many different things to many different people, and we're thrilled with where we ended up. COVID, like many things, delayed our process by about 6 months. And as far as the plan itself, it balances both support for the existing pieces in Earth Lab. We're now 8 member organizations, as well as our innovation grant program, and makes an emphasis on investing in new areas of focus. In terms of new programs, we will have an emphasis going forward in our investments on climate mitigation and adaptation and the intersection with social justice. And very relevant to our conversation here today, there are 3 strategic priorities we have over the next 5 years. It's a 2021 to 25 plan. The priorities are to activate, leverage, and sustain a web of cross-boundary networks, relationships, and resources for the university and our community partners, to drive momentum for collaboratively solving pressing challenges at the intersection of climate and social justice, and third, to secure a stable funding model for Earth Lab programs, member organizations, faculty, student, and community engagement. Again, as a new model that's working across the university with a governing body of 11 deans, 2 advisory bodies, 1 faculty, 1 external. This is new territory for the university, this kind of structure. So there's some foundational pieces still in these early days for us to figure out. I'll stop there and just let you know that currently we're reviewing this with our College of the Environment colleagues and starting to reach out to community leaders to present this plan and identify potentially new partnerships as we go forward. So thanks, Claudia, for the airtime. I'll let others share other announcements as they wish.
Claudia, this is Bruce. I just love what Ben said. I ran into the Earth Lab webpage yesterday. It's just a wonderful highway from the university into the world at large that can be really rich with many kinds of opportunities for faculty and students alike. It's a great program.
Thanks, Bruce. Look forward to working together, and I'm glad you feel that way too. We're just getting started.
Thank you so much, Ben. And so if you have other committee updates, please do feel free to send them on to me, and we'll add them to our upcoming agenda. We do have an email, so if you have just even informational kind of things to know that's happening, please, you can send that as well. We do the bounce. It was kind of this UW mailman system, so we'll go ahead and review it and send it out, and everyone can see it just belonging to this group. And if there's a committee update overall to share, you feel free to just go ahead and send that to me. Wow, so this was a really full discussion. I see Mike nodding his head there. Mike, do you have any thoughts, anything you want to kind of opine on from what we talked about today?
No, I just want to thank everyone for all of the thoughts. Again, these were three targets that we specifically were kind of thinking needed to get some traction from a lot broader input, and so I think we certainly got that today. So really helpful.
Totally agree, and I think this kind of multidisciplinary perspective and idea sharing today definitely added more sort of different fruit in that basket, if you will. So that's just great, and this is the purpose of this committee. Having the various viewpoints. So we are at about time. Thank you very much, Stuart. Thank you, Tony. Yes, and the team who facilitated the definition. Definitely, we got to give them, yay. I don't know how you do that without bringing cookies to Zoom. Yay. I really think we need Zoom pom-poms, right? We need to do that. We need to make that. Okay. So we are going to be sending you a recap of today's Jamboard ideas, as well as the notes, as well as some invitations to some conversations on, furthering and making sure that when those are happening with our action owners, so that you have an opportunity to weigh in and also see before our next meeting on May 27th. So, and for those folks behind the scenes, Damon and Kalina, and Kyle also doing the ghost Jamboard stickies. Thank you. Thank you all. This has all been a team. And then Stephanie Parker, who actually initiates the heavy duty aligning of all these schedules. Thank you very much. We could not do this without you. All right. I think we have a few minutes, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes back of your time. Appreciate, always good to see you. Love seeing your faces. Next time we have pom-poms. All right. So thanks, everyone.